Here we are at the second part of our pattern lesson. I'm using the Super Black India ink. I'm referring to my sketches, and I've decided to use this sketch on that brick pattern. And on the sketch page, now I'm just adding a little bit more variation. So some branches and leaves just to break up space and add a little bit of variety, adding some other symbols if you like. So using the pattern as the constant and then having some variation within. Then I'm ready to move to my watercolor paper and I am adding my structural lines. So if you prefer to use a ruler, a compass, or any sort of other tools to have exact marks, feel free to bring those out. I am measuring with my hands and using a light 4H pencil to create my structural lines so that they're easy to erase later on. And then I begin the brick pattern, deciding about what size I'd like those bricks to be, and then bringing those lines through to create the brick structure. Now I'm ready to start drawing each individual pomegranate. You can always use something to create a perfect circle if you have a circle in your pattern, or if you want to actually draw one and then trace it on so it's exact in each area, you can do that. I'm allowing for a little bit of variation by doing everything by hand. So all of my little tops are a little different. And then before I move on, I erase all the structural lines. And then I'm adding the drip within just some of my pomegranates and not every single one. And now I'm moving through and adding some branches and leaves and any other things that I feel will add to the overall piece, giving it a little bit of flow, a little bit of variation, adding a snake behind one of the pomegranates, and adding a little crescent moon. And now I'm ready for the India ink. So I have a little reservoir and I've put a little bit of the India ink inside. I have some water and I'm using a liner brush. And I used the liner brush throughout the entire thing, and I probably should have used a variation of brushes. I'm left-handed, and so I'm going to start on the right side so that I don't drag my hand across wet paint or ink. So if you're right-handed, you want to do opposite of what I'm doing. And I'm adding a little bit of water in between here and allowing the water and the India ink to mix. And you can create a whole range of grays with India ink. If you have a palette with lots of little reservoirs, you can create ranges of gray with India ink. And it's really quite beautiful to work with. It's one of my very favorite materials. So I'm allowing intuition to guide me, and I'm allowing the structure and repetition of the pomegranates to be the focal point, the place where I can keep my attention, and I'm experimenting with materials. Here I have a little root pattern, which is an echo of the crown of the pomegranate that I've made. So you kind of can find similarities when beginning to include more than one symbol in a piece. And like I said in the last lesson, these are mostly studies. So having somewhere to bring your awareness, come into a meditative flow will allow you to then utilize this in pieces in the future if you enjoy seeing some pattern and repetition to create unity in a piece of art. Filling in the snake all the way black, and it starts interacting with the pomegranate pattern. And as you can see, I have some variations. So some are all black, some are just outline, some have drips, some have the drips colored in. So if you have the ability to create a little bit of variety within your pattern, I recommend doing so that you can just see all the possibilities. And then the one in the middle, I've decided to add some seeds, an open pomegranate, and allow the seeds to interact with the area around. So I'm just checking to see if I want to add any other symbols into my piece and looking at the overall space that everything is taking up, noticing this top corner needs a little bit to bring the eye in. So I add a little bit more branches and leaves here. So everything doesn't have to be known before you start in the sketch form. You can allow the piece to speak to you as you work with it. So it could stay just like that with just the India ink on the white background. I let it dry and then I erase all of the graphite. And now I've decided to come in with the water-soluble crayon in the light green color and then add some shapes in the negative space with the green color as well. And then I have a brighter green that I also bring in. And this plays with breaking up that really high contrast with some lower contrast objects in the background. So now I'm adding a little bit of pink in this bottom left-hand corner, and you can definitely do more with the background if you wish. So you can stay just like that, or with the water-soluble crayon, there's the option to add water to blend out the colors and just break up the negative space a little bit more, add a little bit more expression and mark making, and overall just experimenting with materials. You can also use acrylic paint, watercolor, some colored pencils, or any other type of material. And I've decided I don't really like the paper moving all around. And so I've got just a little bit of artist tape in the corners, and that allows me to move through the piece a little bit easier without it kind of moving all around. And so then I'm just moving through, playing with a round brush, some water, and my water-soluble crayons. So enjoy working with a more structured pattern, a little bit of patience and meditation to create alchemy.